Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you one and all for being here. I know it's a busy part of the year where you have to settle things down in your departments, but still you made your time just to hear interesting things about a person. I mean, who we attend to, but we don't know who the actual person. I mean, not the professionally. Maybe the person who is. How the person is outside the working hours of IISc. We are not aware of the activities or hobbies. I mean, that is what a person is defined based on the activities outside his working hours. So, thank you for being here. The Samvaada event, which we are organizing from the past 6 months, we are getting to know each the staff members in IISc, whom we see their names in their mail ID. We talk to them on their phones, but we know who the actual person is. We might not even met the person, but still we interact. So this is a platform where we introduce ourselves to the community of IISc. So today is the 11th edition of the Samvaada, and today's speaker is our Honorable Registrar of IISc, Captain Sridhar Warrier, Retd. We welcome Registrar Sir to spend time along with us and walking through your life and the moments of your life with the community of IISc. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so good afternoon to all present here, and thank you for inviting me to talk to you, share some of my thoughts on this Samvaada platform. Before I proceed on sharing the thoughts which I thought I will share today, I wish to put on record the appreciation and congratulations to the Office of Communications for having envisioned this kind of a concept where the community members can can get platform to share their experiences, their ideas, their views, and generally express themselves, because it's a wonderful way to connect and a wonderful way to have a sense of expression and release. So to that extent, I had even personally congratulated Professor Kaushal Verma, and I would like to use this platform to put on record that this is really a wonderful initiative to be taken forward. Okay, coming to what I wish to talk to you is, as somebody mentioned, just share my experiences in the last 30 odd years from the time I gained adulthood till now. And what I wish to touch upon today is for people who may try to take their own lessons, inputs from what I felt of various experiences, is we see success and failure, or victory and defeat in different ways, in different contexts, at different times of our life and our professional journey. So I would like to sort of run through my own journey, as I said, from adulthood, and I would specifically bring out instances which I thought was something to me at that time, how life told me something else, and that may be of some interest to people sitting here. So as you all know, I started my professional pursuit at a very young age, as a young boy of 17 years old, when that is a time when the young hopeful boys, now even girls, try and attempt to get admission into some of the military institutions. That's the first time, about 17 years of age. So from my young childhood itself, I dreamt of donning the uniform and having a career in the armed forces. So as I reached my +2 level, that is a time when you start focusing your energies towards a career, I had single track agenda. That is, I have to clear the National Defence Academy examination and join as one of the cadets to become a member of the armed forces, an officer in the armed force. Everything was going good. I mean, I was fairly good student. I had fairly good academic records. So I didn't foresee any problems. And but as usual, typically for a young for a middle class family with the limited means and resources which existed then, it was always usual and common for the parents to tell the student, no, you should not look at only one thing, try for other things, prepare for engineering, prepare for this, prepare for that. And like any other youngster of that time, I also said, okay, I will also prepare towards JEE because science was what my preferred stream was. And that was also going good. It was, I mean, I would have done fairly well if not got the IIT somewhere I would have got, I'm sure. So but when this but my heart was never there. My heart was always towards joining the National Defence Academy, because at that time and I was growing up in the northern part of the country, where there is a lot of interest and a lot of aura associated with joining armed forces, much more than it is there in the south of the country. So the peer pressure was also there, and everybody used to say that, this is a very tough nut to crack, because you have to write an exam, then you have to give an SSB interview, which is 7 days long, where the psychiatrist looks at you and psychologist looks at you. There are group tasks. You have to be physically fit. You have to be Rambo, Superman. You don't know what all. So there was always a sense of doubt which is put in by peers in your mind. So, but that didn't deter me actually, and I went on. On the application forms came, I gave the application was filed, and the day of the exam was fine. I was up and about. We had to travel to another city because the center was not in that place. So far so good. Now when you reach the examination hall, there is a huge sea of candidates, applicants who were standing there. Since I had gone to another city, I had reached early, so I got chatting with 2 fellow candidates, made friends with them. As luck would have it, we were seated, it's like a hall like this. You have benches, this side, that side, and you would sit there. And these 2 friends whom I had just made friends happened to be sitting, one on my right and one on my left on the other row. So good, again we are chatting. Now the question papers were distributed, and as the alarm got struck that it's time to start, we have started doing it. While we are doing it, I just noticed that amongst the 3 of us, there was one person, one of the boys, who didn't seem to be as well prepared, and therefore he was trying to nudge the other person to help him. And the other friend of mine, I'm not taking names, the other friend of mine, and I could see both of them. Other friend of mine was getting uncomfortable. He tried to do some help, or normally in every exam happens if you know people. But this is a written exam, timed written exam, where every second counts. You have to tick mark, think. You don't have time to talk. So after some time, he started ignoring him, and this person started becoming too, insistent, and I felt really sorry for that person, and I lost it. And I told him that, what are you doing? Do what you can do. Why are you troubling him? Why are you spoiling his chances? And I said it a little loud. So somebody heard. And somebody came up, they said, what's happening? So I said, no, he was trying to push him to give answers. Something I told. So lo and behold, there was a case of cheating going on in an entrance exam of national importance conducted by the UPSC, and there was a complainant and there was a person who was doing it. Both of us are asked to get up, me to write a complaint, he to answer. The person who was affected now went out of the scene. He kept answering peacefully. It took about 10-15 minutes for this fiasco to get over, for me to come back. But that 15 minutes was quite a lot of time. And as usual, I wasn't very happy. I had not been able to finish a lot of questions. You have negative exam. So towards the end, I just did a lot of tukka, which within realizing that when you do that, you are even more at risk of getting negative marks. And I went out really upset with this third person who spoiled the show. Now remember, since my focus was all towards this, I had given least importance to JEE. 4 days after that was JEE, and I had already got upset with this. So my JEE also went for a toss. So when the results came out, I had not cleared the exam. I did not know about the other friend whom I was trying to protect. I did not know about the other person who was the cause of all this problem. But my number was not there. So the heavens had fallen, and my mother had come down with the entire roof on me as to why it was all my doing. All said and done, there was no other choice but to wait for another year. That's it. So I thought I'd made a big mistake. This is a big loss for me. I had lost out in life. I'm losing 1 year and whatever. So, but whatever said is done. Next year, so I didn't get into engineering exams, colleges also. I didn't get into this also. But never mind. I went joined graduation and then I appeared for the exam and I got in the next year. Now, when I got in there, I realized that you have squadrons, like hostels you have in university, you have squadrons. But they are not hostels actually, because that is a team. You have a team of people from the lowermost cadets to seniormost cadets as one unit competing, scoring points in academics, and you are pitted against each other. Then finally one squadron is made the winner, and so on and so forth. And there, my immediate senior was the same friend whom I had prevented from being, disturbed, who had cleared and had reached before me. So in the NDA, I know how many of people there is a lot of physical, punishments, which is in civilian terms you can call ragging. Not really ragging, but they are unofficial punishments which can get out of hand. The seniors make you do a lot of things. It toughens you up and all those things. It prepares you for military, but they are not authorized. So I got shielded from a lot of things. And I had a very easy passage where I could just concentrate on what was required to be done, and I could, get untroubled because there was a senior who was trying to shield me. So now, whether it was a victory or a loss, again or loss, I do not know. Moved on in the NDA. There is in India, you have something called taking a foreign language course. You have to learn a foreign language mandatorily. So that's on a random basis, and I got a language called French, which I had studied in 10th, 8th, 9th, 10th in my school. So I didn't want to study it because I said, what is the point? I've studied the same thing, I will do it again. Let me study something else. I tried my level best, but people say nothing doing. There's no such question of you choosing. You've got this, you better do it. I was trying to get something like Bhutanese, which was very difficult. At the same time, there was a small amount of reward by doing it. Bhutanese was being taught because there was some Bhutanese cadets who were brought into NDA to do training along with us. Sometimes when you have midterm breaks, you go to Bhutan, only those students can go along with him who are also learning Bhutanese. So for a young 18-year-old boy, it was a good chance to go abroad. So I thought, no, but I didn't get it. I was there in French. So again, I thought, hard luck, life is all against me, I'm losing out. But because I had learned French and I was about again doing it, I said, let's do something which I can do a little better. I happened to do so well that they said that why don't you try getting diploma. I said, okay, let me try. And as things panned out, I happened to get the diploma. So I was one of those few cadets in NDA who happened to get a diploma in a foreign language. So not getting what I thought I should have got ended up giving me something which I didn't want, but whether it was for good or for bad, I leave it for everybody to decide. We moved on. After National Defence Academy, before you become an officer, you are supposed to do something called, which is equivalent to an internship. Okay, before you become. So that internship happens to be on a ship. Now on this ship, you are supposed to do all kinds of job I missed out a very important aspect. When I got the NDA call letter the next year, I was to go for SSB, Service Selection Board. The Service Selection Board is a 7-day long interview, and in that interview, you are supposed to be assessed for your abilities of being able to perform under pressure, your leadership, your courage, your physical attributes, psychology, your output, etc., etc. I had opted for joining the Indian Air Force because I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be in the air. So for those people who opt for the Air Force, you also have to do something called a pilot aptitude test. Now this test is once in a lifetime. You do it once, you clear it, otherwise for life you cannot become an Air Force pilot. So again, I went there full of confidence. We were about 55 people out of there. Only 18 people cleared the PABT. I didn't clear. That happens on the first day. So the start of the interview itself was as a loss to me, as a defeat to me. No point. All this thing which I had thought that someday I'll be flying some aircraft in military aircraft was all down. But I said, never mind, now I've come here, let me give it the shot. So out of the other balance people who had not cleared, at the end of 7 days, I was the only one who made it to the who made it to the NDA. I mean, you were selected, but not selected for the Air Force because I had not cleared this. So now again, I felt sad that I'm not going to be in the Air Force, I'm not going to ever fly a military aircraft. Why I am saying this is sometime later, whether this was a loss or a gain to me, you will come to me a little later. So when I joined the ship for internship, in the ship you're supposed to do a whole lot of things, from sweeping to toilet cleaning to painting to navigating the ship to weapon firing, everything. The idea is that as an officer you're supposed to know what the lowermost department, lowermost person in the hierarchy does to the topmost person. And unless you've done it yourself firsthand, you can never understand the challenges, the effort, the resources, and the shortcuts which can be taken. So we were doing all these things, and at the end of this internship, there is something called an interview board. This interview board finally approves your promotion as an officer or your commission as an officer. Unless you clear this, you cannot. If you fail in this interview board, you have to do this internship again. All was going well, and the questions in the interview board generally is practical based. So you can't read up and do something. You should have done it, seen it, and then only answer. So as it was happening, as the days were approaching towards the interview board, there was a big exercise coming up, which we were all eagerly looking forward. We were 3 of us. Now before that, in the run up to that, the 3 of us who were doing internship were put through the different departments. One of the important aspects of that training is navigating the ship. Now in the navigation of the ship, there are 3 methods of doing navigation. One is a physical method. The physical method is when you look out, see some lighthouse, see some other landmass, look in the chart, find out the bearing, mark it on the chart, etc., etc. There is another method which is an electronic method, which is using radars. Use radar to find out where you are, which has GPS and other things. There is a third way, which is using the astronomical method. This is in the good old days when you didn't have all those things, or on a bad day when your system fails, you don't have any physical references. How do you navigate a ship? So you use the sun, the moon, and the stars. That's the astronomical method. So I was allotted the astronomical method, which is the most difficult. I didn't want it. The best one to take is the electronic one, because radar will always work, GPS will always be there, so your answers will always be more or less accurate. It's easy to learn. But as you know, in the military, you don't have choice. What you are given, you are given. So I had to do this. Now, what is the way out? Because these things are all marked. They've got all marks. I mean, for the final interview, there is certain percentage marks for your navigation and other things that you have done. There are certain marks for a project, for an entire dossier that you fill up, which with what it's called a journal, where you fill, where you have said what all you have done. That has got some marks, and then you have the interview marks. So since you had to get some marks, what would you do? Take shortcuts. Try and ask your friends to give where your position is from the electronic thing, and try to replicate it on the astronomical thing, and try to give some result. Now I did not know that in astronomical method, it is very, very difficult to get a very accurate position. You are supposed to be acceptable if your position is within 20 kilometers or 18 kilometers, 10 nautical miles. It's in miles. Everything at sea and in air is in nautical miles. You're supposed to be good if your position is within 5 nautical miles or 9 kilometers of your actual position. But my position was coming as on top of the position. It was very easy for people to decide that this is a boy who's not yet learned astronomical positioning. How can he get it? So I got caught red-handed one day. And after that, I had person standing on my head all the time to check what I'm doing every day. So my life was a misery. Okay, now my life is a misery. I invited it upon myself. What do? I learned it the hard way. And somehow, because of learning it the hard way and because of having some personal pride and professional, dignity, my position fixing actually started becoming good. They started coming in 3 miles, 2 miles, 4 miles, and so on and so forth. So this report was sent, duly signed. They also got it. So why I'm bringing this out is this was an adversity. I was not happy. I got the wrong thing. I had created further difficulties for me by trying to take shortcut. Now, close to my interview, there was something called a big exercise which was to happen with multiple ships. Now, that is the biggest moment where you can learn a lot of things. And it is quite certain that your questions would be asked surrounding those things, because it will have weapon firing, it will have tactics, it will have, navigation, it will have a whole lot of activities which you will see live, fueling and all those things. But as luck would have it, sometime close to it, one of the department in which I was attached at that time had a emergency appendicitis case, just a day prior. And somebody had to be downloaded from the ship to be as a support staff and also to provide blood. For both, there was one man found, that was Sridhar Warrier. Why so? Because it's an exercise, all specialist people are required. This person was doing internship, he's spareable. Now the other two of my colleagues who would have the luxury of going there would definitely stand to answer better. So I tried my best, but in the army there is no, in the military there is no question of, listening or not. This is an order, you just follow it. And they say, see, you're having fun, you're going to be ashore and you're all at sea day and night working. So I said, yes, good. I got down. Now I did my job. I happened to take care of it. There was some complications, some extra blood was required, so we did some running around. Obviously you do all these things. So all that was handled well. The family was good, the person was recuperating. By the time for 15 days, 20 days it passed and the ship came back. 5 days after that was the interview. So I had to quickly ask my friends, please tell me what happened so that we pick up. They told some things, they didn't tell something, they forgot something, they said something incorrectly. I just took that at face value. In the interview board, I performed miserably, because 90% of things that were asked was for the exercise and I had seen nothing of it. And but when you ask this, you can't say that you have not seen it, because you are expected to have learnt. So they will ask, how would you have done it? How would it have happened? Now for a boy who has never seen all these things, it's very difficult to imagine how would he have done it. So I was keeping my fingers crossed that this is not going to go. I may have to repeat the internship again. But then I realized that I have done much better than when the results came. I have done much better than average. So I was surprised, who is the one who has tried to give me marks more than I deserved? And then it turns out that I had topped the astronomical part, which I had perforce been forced to study, and my so-called positioning accuracy was probably in the last one decade, nobody had acquired that accuracy. So because of that, I got marks in the 90s, 90%. Whereas all those people, my colleagues who were present in my ship, who were doing the electronic method of fixing, they got in the 60s and 70s, because everybody gets that marks, because it's simple. Nobody gets extra because they're not done anything special. So that difference of 70s and 90s, whereas I had got less than 50 in my interview, helped me get an overall better percentage. So sigh of relief. So whether not getting the easy way out and being put to task by people standing on my head went in my favor or not, I leave it to you. I moved on. But all these things today I'm saying in hindsight. At that time it didn't seem so much sugary and so much nice to have things. Incidentally, I also got a prize for being the best in astronavigation, which I was very happy to receive, one watch which I even have till date. Then I went on, after the commissioning, you have something called professional training, where you are supposed to learn the nuts and bolts of your officer type of tasks that you have to do in the services, where in all branches you have to exposed. That's a 1 year long course where you have to do engineering aspect, you have to learn the logistics aspects, you have to learn the tactics aspect, and so on and so forth. So while I was doing all these things, the last phase of our classes were in a particular school where you had an instructor. Now these instructors generally are about 3-4 years senior to you. They would have done the course about you, they have done some classes course, they would have done some appointments, done some specialization, and come and started teaching you. One such instructor was a very peculiar kind of person. In the military, you must be aware that you maintain a lot of formality. There are certain unwritten things which you don't cross, you don't take advantage of. So this person was a little different. He used to become very casual, and while teaching classes, very strict. And after that, during some lunch break and all, he will come, pat your back, and try to pry, make some jokes. But since you're senior, he can do. The junior obviously cannot take this liberty. So you would find, and he would sometimes make. Now in the military, there's also another occupational hazard, if I can say that, wherein you are expected to maintain certain lifestyle, because in the society, it's a legacy era. In the society, you are looked up to. So you can't be seen wearing clothes which are crumpled. You can't be seen in casual dressing, with the jeans cut here or something, those style statements. You need to look prim and proper. You need to be having the right kind of dressing for different occasions. You need to have some club memberships wherein you're supposed to go interact with, people of different hierarchies. These cost money, because you have to afford to have these things. And armed forces weren't very well paid. Even now they are not very well paid, but they're well paid. And I'm talking about the 90s, where the liberalization had not started. So the pay for an officer of say level 10, 12, 11 at that time would be some 3,000 rupees. 3,000 rupees. And I came from a middle class background where thrift, frugality were ingrained into me. Not one penny should be spent without accounting for it. So what I used to do is, I used to try and avoid going to too many places, because you were not having that kind of dresses to go. So instead of going without being properly dressed, attired, it's better to have the sufficient number of places, sufficient places to go. So this gentleman made a snide comment that today's youngsters not interested in meeting around and not going there, which I didn't like. He was trying to make a sarcastic joke on me. I knew that he had a very lavish lifestyle, so much so that he had to borrow some money to buy a vehicle. So I replied to him, yeah, it's better not to borrow money for doing this, which he got. And he took an immediate hatred towards me. So much so that for all my classes, all my exams, he would take special attention to see whether this is being done right or wrong. Now, the final exam, we had a tactics paper. The tactics paper is an open book paper. Now, open book paper is always more time consuming. I had a friend who used to live with me, who we used to exchange, and we were very interested and passionate about tactics. There are some peculiar problems of tactics which required certain different way of addressing. We had worked out the previous night, and the next day the same thing came. So, but while I was doing it, I got some of my numbers wrong, and I had to cancel it, and I had to redo it again. And actually the method which I was doing was right, but just because I had cancelled it and done it extremely well the next page, the same concerned gentleman did not give me marks, saying that no, you have copied this because first time you did it all wrong, how come you got it right immediately? Now the military, again, you don't have to have a evidence to so. Senior has said, it's said. So I did not get 80% and above marks, which is important. I got 78% marks. Now if you don't get 80% in the Navy, there is something called a seniority penalty. That means if you get 80% more marks, you get some seniority. That means your own colleagues will become a little senior to you. And you get less seniority. So I didn't get, I was a lesser seniority. Despite the fact that I was the one who had brought out that exact procedure for doing it. So I felt my luck is all miserable. I'm losing, I lost out despite having no fault of mine. Because of this, I got to go. Now after this you are supposed to be sent to the first ship for you to get your independent appointment or independent certificate appointment. There's a certificate which says that okay, you are clear to independently operate as an officer on a ship. That certification requires about 8-9 months. So most of my colleagues who got higher seniorities were sent to bigger ships. That's how it is done, in priority. Since I had not, I went to a smaller ship. Again, I was miserable because I felt my capability was there. I would have got, but nothing. When I went there, I realized it's a small place, you have a lot more freedom. You could, while other places people were restricted to certain specific domains, I didn't get restricted. So I get exposed to a lot of places, and I happened to be ready for certification much before time, which was okay, nothing great. But what happened is, because of that, since it takes 9 months for the next appointment to come, I was ready after 6 months with all certificate. I was just waiting for my appointment. In between the 6 and 9 months came an advertisement for people who have not cleared PABT can join aviation as warfare and weapons officer, for which you have to finish the certification. So had I been in some other bigger ships, I would not have been eligible, but now I was eligible. I applied. I got. So again, I do not know whether it was destined or what it was happening. Then I went to this particular school called Observer School, which is now called the Naval Air Operations School. And we did well. I mean, since I was getting a chance to go up in the air, I was all in my elements and I was doing reasonably well. And because I was doing reasonably well, at the end of the thing, you can choose which aircraft you want to take. Now, since I had got exposed to ship, I started loving the ship. Now, I wanted to have the best of the two worlds. This is why I'm saying, going back in that Air Force, if I had gone, I would have been only flying. And here I was getting a chance to be on ship as well as on the aircraft. But for that, you have to pick a helicopter, because from the ships, if you want to fly, you need to get helicopters. If you take aircraft, they are mostly flying from shore, even in the Navy. So I could take a choice. So I took a choice for a helicopter that was called Sea King then. They were the most advanced helicopters available in the Navy then. And it had a lot of electronic warfare suit, which was very challenging, interesting, jamming, and so on and so forth. So I thought I should get this, and I will get it. But for some rhyme or reason, the people who were responsible for allotted me another aircraft, which was a Russian aircraft, which was the oldest aircraft that was available that time in helicopters in the Navy, to me. Again, I had a stiff, what is this? No, it is not because of your choice only, it is also about your suitability. We consider you more suitable for this aircraft. So I was crestfallen. I thought this life is not allowing me to do anything that I want. I went to this new stream called Kamov. Now, Kamov 25 is a helicopter which is unique in two ways. One way, it is the only helicopter which doesn't have a tail rotor. You understand what is tail rotor? Every helicopter has a tail rotor. It's to balance the swing, the Newton's fourth law. Every action, equal reaction. So this aircraft has got contra rotors to do that. It doesn't have a tail rotor, it has got contra rotors. So it's unique in the world, only aircraft. The other unique identifying factor was that this was the only aircraft wherein there was only one pilot and one observer, that is me, tactical operator, and both would be sitting in the cockpit, which means the tactical operator, while not being a pilot, also has to be a co-pilot, because he has to assist the pilot in direction, he has to assist the pilot in terms of fuel management, he has to assist the pilot when there is an engine control. So I was almost like a pilot, and plus a weapon operator, which means I had, in that aircraft, the pilot was only a driver, nothing else, which was very interesting for me. So I enjoyed, I was happy. I forgot the fact that I had opted for Sea Kings, and I was very happy in going with this. Finished my training, and then you are supposed to operate from the ships. So while I was operating from the ships, now here is where I want to introduce other two things about doing what is right. I mean, how these two things are very important. Seeing whether winning, losing, or victory, defeat, gaining, losing is actually same at the same time, or it has got some other purposes in life. Second thing is what happens when you do right even when things are not going the right way. My first experience of that was when you are in the ship, you are also supposed to be in charge of some set of people for whom you are supposed to write ACRs, APARs, look after their welfare, ensure that their promotions, due time promotions are, qualifications are met, etc., etc. So I had some 4-5 sets of people under me for whom I was directly responsible. And in the Navy, there is something called an accelerated promotion. This promotion is given for some people who are outstanding, who otherwise by virtue of the seniority will come later in their look time, who can be brought up, accelerated, and put forward. But even for that, there is a number of people, there is a roster. I mean, you can jump about 10, 15, you can't jump 25, 30. So I had two people in my people who were good. One was a Malayali and the other was a Bihari. This Malayali person used to have some family problem at home, which I knew. So sometimes he used to say, sir, I have to do this job, I'll finish it by now, can I go a little early? Or sometimes he would ask for extra time during lunch break when we are not on the ship, when we are in the airfield with the aircraft. And he would go rush home and do something and come back. So I got to know from some time later that there was a rumor going around that because he's a Malayali, I am sort of trying to do this. In the military, this is a very, very big offense. You don't look at anybody from the eyes of, region, religion, those kind of things. So there was some, murmurs going around. Now, didn't reach my ear then, but I had done this without, thinking about his religion or region or whatever. I knew that he had a problem, his wife had a miscarriage and she was carrying for the second time and there was some issue. So I said, okay, chota, these small things, there's not a problem. So long as there's no compromise on the work, it's all right. But otherwise, I was a very strict taskmaster with everybody else. Everybody used to be scared of me, and they would not come to me and ask for any favors only. But when it came for assessment, there was this guy, Bihari person, who was extremely hardworking, wouldn't ask for anything, no requests, no favors, nothing. And he would work like a dog beyond his job, do other jobs also. So when it came for writing ACRs, I discussed with my immediate superior and I said that this man, this Bihari person should be given accelerated promotion. Now the problem there was this Bihari person was very junior. That means in the roster, he was some 200th number. And if you give accelerated promotion points, he will jump 20 points. Maybe. It may not be of any benefit to him. Whereas the other Malayali guy was some 15th or 16th in the number roster. So if you give him, I mean, there are all other people also and all other ships also who are being marked, he would probably get benefited. So my boss asked me, you think it over, because this person has got a real good chance to get promoted. I said, but how do I remain true to my conscience? There's a man for whom there has been some other constraints which we have looked after, but this man has given his heart and soul, and I say that I should give him. So my boss didn't say anything, though he didn't agree with me because it was my domain and he knew that I am a little headstrong. He just left it. I did it. It takes a little time for all these things to take into shape. We left it and it was all over. And one day, this Malayali guy came to tell me, he says that, sir, you have done me a big injustice. So I asked me, how? Now these things are kept confidential. These are ACRs. They're not known. But somehow it leaks. All these people come to know. I do not know how. The HR people might be able to tell how things leak out. But it leaked. It leaked, and he said that you have done me a big injustice. So I said, injustice. That was the last thing that I would have heard. I would have imagined. He says that, sir, I've got a problem in my family. I am planning to quit service. If I had got promoted this time, I would have got a phenomenal jump in my pension. Then what I will get now if I don't get promoted. So you have hit me on my stomach. It was a very emotional conversation, and at 25, 28 years of age, you don't know how to react to such conversation. I said, no, I don't think I've given you poor markings. Why are you saying so? So, no, sir, we know you might have given me good marks, but promotion accelerated, you have recommended to XYZ. And see, he will also not benefit, I will also not benefit. So he jammed me for 1 hour, and I went home with a heavy heart thinking, have I done something wrong? Because I thought I had done the right thing at that time. 2 months down the line, the promotion list came out. And guess what? Both got promoted. So here I was standing vindicated that I had given due reward to somebody who deserved. At the same time, the person who would also be equally eligible did not suffer. The concerned person, Malayali, came and met me and he apologized and he thanked me and went. The matter got over. That was my first realization and reaffirmation of being true to yourself will pay. And that's the way to stay. This came later also. Now, when I moved on from this, after your basic stages, you're required to do something called specialization in the service. Now, the specialization is seen during some particular time of your career bracket. When that was being considered, because of some reason where people knew about me or whatever reason, somebody felt in senior level, who later on became a CNS later, he selected me in from the aviation, he selected me for a new acquisition. At that time, the Navy was acquiring a nuclear attack aircraft called Tu-22. It is a nuclear bomber, Tu-22. Some of you, if you Google it, will come to know. So Tu-22 was being discussed very secretively, and there were some sort of people who were to be shortlisted. So these discussions take time. So if you don't keep these people away and ready, when it happens, you will not be able to send them for training. So my name was put there. I didn't get selected for this so-called specialization course, which is very, very important in the naval service for your career growth. When the list came and I wasn't there, I took up against it. I said, what are you doing with me? So everybody tried to call up, and then this particular senior officer, who later on became the Chief of Naval Staff, he said that, Warrier, I'm looking at you for something important. Please don't ask me now, but this is important. Don't make too much of a noise about it. So when you're such a senior, people are talking in the military, you don't really, go against it unless you're very sure. And also when you're 32, 34, you keep quiet, or 30. So I kept quiet. My batchmates, my next batchmates did their, course, so-called specialization course, and moved ahead. I didn't have anything. 1.5, 2 years passed. I asked her what's happening. So then I got a call from him saying that I'm so sorry, Warrior. We were trying to get you for this TU22, but this has got shelved because of government change or whatever. Now we will send you for something called an instructor course. I mean, nothing worse I could have heard that day, because instructor course at that time was not given the same importance as active operational specialization. Because instructor was teaching, people thought, what is there? Anybody who's not instructional, who is not being given this, will be given instructional. But I had no choice now. My bus had been missed, so I went there. In the Air Force, this got done in the Air Force. In the Air Force, I went there, and since I was from the Navy, I had to preserve the Navy's, reputation. Managed myself without getting, seen in poor light. But I saw the professionalism which is there as far as teaching and instructions concerned the Air Force. So subsequently, when I came back to the Navy, they put me as an instructor in O school. I brought in some of those things which I learned, and for the time that I spent, I got some very. In the Navy, you also have something called what is it called? It's called rating by the trainees, trainee rating for instructor, and that carries a lot of value because the trainee ratings consistently for me were 9 pointer and above in a scale of 10, which goes to the naval headquarters. But I didn't know all these things. It went on. It finished. I was thinking miserably that's because I have done this, I have not got any important specialization. I continued moving on in my career. Now, after your specialization, there is something called supervisory level of selection, which means you are selected to be supervisory part of the ship. When you have supervisory part of the ship, that means you are either a commanding officer or the number 2. So that is the biggest, indication, or the biggest step, or the first step for your promotion ladder. Now this happens about somewhere close to 34, 35. Now when that thereabouts the time, I was selected to become the instructor of the observer school. Chief instructor of the observer school. Now when I was the chief instructor of the observer school, I was happy I was doing it, but the same time coincided with the first women combatants joining the Navy. Incidentally, I do not know how many of you registered, but the Navy had the first women people going into combat much before all this conversation about women happened. I'm talking about in the year 2008. They were all taken on the aircraft and they would have gone into harm's way if required. But it was not publicized in this way. But we took them on. At the same time, there is also time where international trainees, the Indian Navy started training for aviation, and I was a chief instructor. So it was a mammoth task. We had to do it, and suddenly, because it became quite well received and the reviews were very good, it became a hit. And the school, which incidentally was only training few sets of Indian people, became an international limelight, so much so that we had the UK similar school commanding officer visiting us to see how you have done it and so on and so forth. So because I was doing this and I was the one in charge of everything, I was the chief instructor doing everything, coordination, execution, etc. I was not spared for a very important course which is required to be done if you have to go for this selection for supervisory level. This is called the staff course. And now I said again, this is a hell of a joke. I'm doing something good and so I'm being penalized. But they said, no, we have nobody else. Now this course is to be completed. We have got the first batch. We need to have this momentum going for at least 3-4 batches. So now you can't do anything. If the HR says that you can't be spared, you can't be spared. Khatam kahani. So I continued doing this, very, very unhappy. But since the personal and professional pride was at stake, we did it. And because I was doing it well, for some strange reason, normally where someone who is not selected for this does not get selected for this, we call it C time, wherein you are going as the second in command of this. I was selected to be the now second in command of one of the most sophisticated and modern ships of that time. It was the Krevak class of ships from Russia, it's a stealth ship, Tabar. I was again surprised. Here I have not filled the QRs of having done these specializations. I have not done this QRs of doing this, staff course, but here I was going. So again, there was another, I do not know whether to call it destiny, whether it was called as a reward for something, or whether it was life taking me in a different way. So what I learned then was that whenever I thought that this was a loss to me, whenever I thought that this was something which is not a great thing to have happened to me, I was proved wrong in some other way. All said and done, I went for this place. Now here comes the experience. Now if you see, I have not got exposed to ship administration at all because of these reasons. Whereas my other colleagues, particularly from aviation, have got exposed by virtue of having done this courses, and therefore thereafter when you do courses, you are mandatorily required to spend some time on ship, which I didn't do. But I had gone to the ship as a youngster for my ticket, and having done almost everything independently, which stood me in good stead for me to acclimatize and perform on that ship immediately. So much so that we carried out the first firing, alerted firings at night, and we were successful. It helped the ship to not only perform well, it also was a reason for me to be the only person to be selected from the ships to represent Indian Navy as an observer in an international exercise conducted by Egypt called Eagle Salute. So I don't know whether I would have been able to do all these things if I was doing what I had done others, whether I would have got selected to come here, whether I would have got a chance to do this firing, because of which I got selected. So, one led to the other, and we were just mere tools at that time and at that place. But having done all these things, I was thinking I'm doing great guns. Suddenly, because I had come late, a lot of people who had come had finished their so-called tenures. I had come late because of the fact that I was retained in the observer school. I couldn't be spared for a command, and that command was a very important requirement for a career growth. I was said, no, we cannot go for a command. So I was very unhappy. Now what do? So I decided to change track from operational stream to something called the public relations. Now in the Navy, the defense public relation is a very important requirement, and it was being given a lot of emphasis and focus because the Chief of Naval Staff, who had become then, was very, very insistent that we need to be seen. There was a newspaper article by M.J. Akbar, who had mentioned that the Navy ka tsunami ka time mein a lot of work was done and a lot of other things. We says that आप लोग इतना करते हो, लेकिन जंगल में मोर नाचा किसने देखा? So the Navy was always considered and seen as a silent service, not seen, not heard, which the senior hierarchy felt that this cannot happen. We need to demonstrate because Army is seen, Air Force is seen, they're doing what they're doing. For Navy to do anything, it has to go to sea, and sea is not visible. So then I said, okay, now that I'm not getting this chance of getting a command, let me try something else. I opted for it's an interview. You have to be selected by the Ministry of Defense to be the defense spokesperson for the Navy. So I went there and I performed. I came to know later that I was the first amongst all the probable candidates. But the naval hierarchy, senior people called me and told me, Warrior, can you take this job in Kochi because we don't have a Malayali speaking person there? I was crestfallen. I said, but so this is a bigger canvas. This is for the Navy. There I'll be only looking at a very small part of the Navy. So I said, no, we need somebody. So again I said, no, what can I say? Do I have a choice? So they said, no, you don't have a choice unless you put up a representation or I said, no, I have never put up any representation, so I will not do it. I will go. I'm a soldier. I went there. I came to know later that if I had said no, I would have got selected because the Ministry of Defense only goes by the merit, which I did not know. So I did not put my foot down. So since the Navy said that this person is willing to go for that place, the second person can be selected for the other one. So the second person became the Navy PRO, and I became the Defense PRO for Kochi. Now Cochin and Southern Naval Command are very remote areas otherwise, if you compare the naval headquarters, the national requirement and things like that. So again I thought, life is all bad. I have not got anything to gain in life. Now when I reached the naval headquarters, when I reached Kochi, I was in the thick of activities in terms of events which happened. For some reason, I was also responsible for being the man instrumental in getting the first heart transplant take place with a movement of a heart by naval aircraft. This was that big national news. And it was just because of empathy. Somebody called up, I felt this is good, so I spoke to the naval, since I knew the naval hierarchy, I could speak to them, so you must do this, it will be good, visibility and all this. It went well, and it became good news. So suddenly I started being recognized by the naval hierarchy about someone who's there, who's doing something, even by the press. So activities of Southern Naval Command also started gaining interest by some people outside the Kochi area. Then we had the hard luck or the misfortune of having the floods, the big floods of Kerala. And because by then I had sufficient working relationship, a lot of people started asking for inputs, and I was able to convince people to allow people to come and have a look. We got a lot of good publicity. So much so that BBC covered a news about how Navy was doing a wonderful job, which the Chief of Naval Staff, the Prime Minister, Defence Minister, everybody noticed. So much so the Defence Minister once made a comment that it appears as if only Navy is working and the central government authorities are not working, which is on a jest. So now there was a time that I was supposed to go for some important appointments which would help me in my career, but I was now not being spared, saying that now you are doing a very good job, we want you here. I said, what is this? So I said, okay, fine. At this time, I also had some medical issues in my family and COVID also stuck. At that time, I was thanking my stars that I was there, because you know how things were during COVID, and my family was, my parents were also in the same place. Because I was in the Navy, I could break a lot of curfews and travel, look after people and look after my family too. So I was in a sort of happy zone that, okay, maybe this was good that I didn't go to Delhi and I'm here. But as time went by, they said, okay, now you have been here for a quite long time, we need to move you. So I said, okay, then I want to go to some XYZ place, this is what I would like to do. They said, no, we don't have a space for that, you have to go somewhere else. Now, typically this also happens with HR, in the Navy also. There was some HR person who did not know about me, who had just come in. He just spoke to me casually. I said, come on, what are you saying? I did all these things. No, everybody does whatever is required. We can't spare you. So in a fit of rage, I told him, in that case, I will leave Navy. I didn't mean it at all. But he said, okay, that's your choice. If you want to leave, you leave. But now that I had said it, I didn't want to, sort of beg anybody else. I was very unhappy. I was thinking, what will happen? There's no stability to family. I had some medical issues also in my family. What do I do? And as luck would have it, at that time, this advertisement for Registrar in the Institute of Science came. Just out of sheer desperation, I said, let's just fill it up. And I forgot about it. And then after some time, my son asked me that, what happened to your registry? Because I used to always say, I do not know whether they will send me. I don't have any idea. So they said, did you see your mail? I said, no, I have not seen my mail. Check, you can send a mail and ask what has happened. So I reluctantly sat down. When I opened the email ID, there was this mail from Jai Prakash saying that, you are so-and-so. Interview is selected, scheduled 4 days from now. He had sent the mail a few days earlier, I had not seen it. And the rest, as you say, is history. So the matter is not over. All these places, I had all the times felt that life was being miserable and bad to me. But today I can say at all the places there was something good and life panned out much better. After my selection and when I was leaving, I had to come at a very short notice. There's a huge lot of documentation which is required for leaving unarmed forces to come to civil. Now, since I had to go here, I went to Delhi, told them this is what is to be done, this is my documents, please clear it, I have to go. They said, okay, we'll do all that. They said to everybody. But some other people were also leaving at the same time, and somehow some 2-3 important documents which are supposed to come to me, which would have been very difficult for me to trace after I had left, reached Chennai. I do not know how, because there was some Sridhar there also, who was also leaving. It reached Chennai, and the Chennai didn't know who this person is. And they just kept it there. But one person happened to see this. He said so by the time I had already joined here, and I didn't have this documentation, and I was worried, what will I do? So I get a call one day and said that, sir, are you Captain Warrier who were there in so-and-so place at that time? I said, yes, I'm the same person. Said, sir, I am so-and-so person. I am the brother of the person who you had helped during an appendix operation. So I said, oh, yeah, oh, how's your brother? No, he's fine, he's doing this and so. Sir, this document of yours appears to be yours. Is it yours? I said, wow, I did not know where it was because NHQ told me it was sent. I have not got it. Saying, sir, if I send it back to NHQ, I will again go there. So I want to know where your address is. I'm not supposed to send it to you, but I will do it. I did not know what to say. I gave him my email ID, I gave him my address. 1 week from that, my documents were in place. So you see, I mean, something that you do and something that you did not like may not be what actually you thought it was. And in life, you may have got very many losses, very many defeats. But were they actually defeats is something that we will probably sit back and correlate later. So that's all from me now. I think I've taken much more time than was supposed to, but it was a flow, so I couldn't stop in between. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope it was of some value to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. It was a complete roller coaster kind of a ride for us. And any questions from the staff? Any questions to sir?
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi.
Nice having you here. And so, how do you find IISc? You have served defense in a different manner, and now being in IISc, what do you think of IISc?
I dread this question.
Are you
I dread this question because I will be honest to say I'm still to be comfortable here. The reason is because when you do something for 20 years in a particular way, the first thing to do is unlearn those things, because what is okay and what is the accepted way to do things in the service or military is not okay to do it here. Not because it's wrong, because it is not right for this place. There is a system which is followed, which has stood the test of time. Here there is a system which has evolved over a period of time because of so many years of being in existence. Now, the trick lies in being able to understand and adapt. Now, how well I'm adapting, I don't know. So, the answer to your question is that I'm still learning.
You speak about that helicopter thing. So, you yourself
can use the mic.
anytime.
Sorry?
You yourself has ride anytime helicopter.
Okay, so it's like this. In the helicopters, the controls are only with one person. But you have something called a collective and a pitch control. And then you have a rudder control. Normally in helicopters, you have two people doing it. Why do you have two people? Is because there may be times where some control could have a problem, and then you would require one person to help you to do it. Or sometimes you may have an engine problem wherein the engine parameters need to be adjusted. Now, so there was a time. Okay, another problem when a helicopter, particularly flying from ship, is a question of disorientation. What it means is that you do not believe what you see. For example, you may be going down, but you think you are not going down. It's disorientation. You are not able to orient. Now, when this happens, a single pilot gets disoriented. It is sure shot disaster to death. I had an occasion wherein my pilot got disoriented. Now, why it got disoriented is when you take off from shore, you have huge lights. It's very well lit. Suddenly, when you go out from shore and turn to sea, and if it is not a moonlit light, you have pitch darkness. So, from that pure light to pure darkness, if you come from any room to any well lit room to a dark room, you'll see you'll not be able to see. And at that time, sometimes you take wrong reference and assume to go by that. You fly visual, you're taking a reference where the sky comes and meets the sea is the horizon. If you see in the horizon, you're trying to keep the horizon and keep flying. But suddenly if you try to look at a star and think that it is a ship in the sea, you start going up or going down. So it happened, and my helicopter started going down, and a pilot would not realize it's going down. So now you can't panic at that time. If you say, what are you doing? He will react in a very aggressive manner, and you will create further problems. So you have to tell him that to leave the controls, press left rudder so that the aircraft becomes moved to one side. Then I had to control the engines to do good things. So while I didn't use the controls to control, but I guided him, use the available techniques to bring him back to orientation, and then save mine and his life. Yeah, please.
Sir, in hindsight, most of the things like you said worked out for you. But when you were experiencing those, how did you keep a level head? when you had those failures or the apparent failures that you said, even for us, like, when
I really have no accurate answer for it, because I told you I'm telling all these things in hindsight, and I recollected and sort of took cognizance of this when that call came to me after joining. That how soon, because it took me back to my 25 years ago experience, and then I just sat back and rewound, because it's not normal or usual for a person to be able to leave service one day and join another organization the next day. Never happens. Sometimes what happens is you retire, you start looking for some jobs, you get some job later. Or what happens is that you quit service, do some training for some management course somewhere, and then you do in some campus selection, you get some selection. But in my case, it was something else. I had a job in hand, then I left. So when I was in that phase, I said, maybe I'm blessed that this is happening. So coming to your question as to what you thought, at that time, the only way I took is I was too proud a man. In the sense, I hated to do anything substandard. So whenever I was put in something, I said, okay, if I've done this, then I jolly well show what I'm capable of. That somehow probably, swung the day for me. But I can't tell you, because I don't now remember what emotions I had at that time. Except the fact that I was already very sure that I will not allow circumstances to overcome me. Anything else? Lunchtime? Yeah, please.
Sir, your interest in art culture?
I think there's no human being who's not interested in art culture. Tell me one person who will not look at people, a good dance, or who will not tap his foot to a good tune. So I am also interested. I also like to listen to old Hindi music. I am quite fond of listening to, U. Srinivas mandolin. But I'm a poor singer, bathroom singer. That's it. Shall we call it a day?
Thank you, sir. With a statement that failures or setbacks are to be considered as a blessing in disguise, we end today's Samvada.